Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips for time management. I recently gave a similar presentation at the Chicago Planner Conference called Making Your Time Count. However, I had an hour with them and there was a lot of interaction. I had a great group of women that were asking a lot of questions and really interacting. And so this is going to be a little bit different, mostly because I don't think you should sit here for an hour and listen to me talk on time management. That feels a little bit counterproductive, but I do want to share with you the 10 tips that I shared with them and a couple of key action steps that you can take towards managing your time better. I also want to start by saying that time management is not going to be a list of tricks that you can just apply to your life. I know that is the complete opposite of what I just told you, but the truth is that you have to look at time as a resource, and time management is really about a shift in mindset and your way of thinking rather than do this, do this, do this, do this. Also, I understand that everybody's life is different. Everybody's time is different. Everybody's schedule is different. Everybody's goals are different. So time management is going to look different for every person. So I want you to take what I'm going to share today with a grain of salt and then apply it towards your life. And I'm hoping that you take away some actionable steps that you can then interpret to make them work for you. Because again, what works for me and my time management and my schedule and my life may not work for you. So we're not going to get super specific. I'm not going to tell you to wake up super early. I'm not going to tell you that you need to meditate every day to clear a bunch of headspace. I am just going to share with you some basic tips that can help you get control of your time. Okay, the first one I'm calling tip 0, and that is to use a planner or a calendar system. I didn't feel like this deserved an actual tip number, given that if you are here on my channel, if you're hanging out with me, you probably use some sort of planner or calendar system. And whether that is a paper planner or whether that is a digital calendar, all I want you to know here is just make sure that your planner system is working for you. I think a lot of us in this planner community use our planner as a hobby and as a creative outlet, and that's great. It allows us to let those creative juices flow. It allows us to meet new people, allows us to get out there. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you have a system that works for you. And heck, if that is even having a Google Calendar to help balance out your paper planner because that paper planner is more of your creative outlet, that's okay. But just make sure that you have a system and a planner in place that works for you. Okay, tip number 1 is to prioritize your task. Managing your time without prioritizing is like throwing an arrow and then going and drawing the target around where the arrow landed. If you don't prioritize how you're going to spend your time, you're not going to be spending it in the way that you want to. Now, there are a number of different ways to prioritize tasks. There's that grid with like importance and urgency across either side. There's picking a top 3 and then letting everything else be fluff. There are a number of ways. This is not a prioritization video, so I'm not going to go into that here, but just know that if you don't prioritize how you're going to spend your time, you're going to be either A, spending it in ways that you don't want to, or B, feeling really guilty at the end of the day when you didn't achieve everything on your to-do list. Tip number 2 is to say no. And I know you've heard this before. This is not brand new information that you've never heard before, but I just want to reiterate that every time that you say yes to something, that is you saying no to something else. And you don't know in this moment. You might not know for months what that other thing is that you're eventually saying no to, but by committing to something now, you're saying no to something in the future. And I think sometimes as planners, we struggle because someone will say, hey, can you do this on this date? So you pull out your planner, you go to that date. Yeah, I'm free, sounds good. And while you are free right now, you don't know how you were going to be spending that time down the road. So I'm not saying to say no to everybody and do just the things that you want to do. But I want you to really consider every time that you say yes to something, if it's not a hell yes, it should probably be a no. And in the wise words of my friend Jen, an invitation is not a summons. Just because somebody invites you does not mean you have to say yes if you are free. Tip number 3 is something that I am really working on right now, actually, in my day-to-day life and in my time management journey, I guess we could call it. And that is moving to-dos to actual calendar appointments and giving things the time that they're going to take. So if you've watched any of my Plan With Me's, I have a to-do list every single day. But I don't differentiate between things that are going to take 5 minutes and things that are going to take an hour. I don't differentiate what order I'm going to do them in or when during the day. Am I going to do them in the morning? Am I going to do them during lunch or after work? I don't differentiate any of that. That is not productive. That is not good time management. In reality, those to-do lists should be broken up into calendar appointments on a calendar of sorts, whether that is a paper planner or a digital calendar, and given time slots. Otherwise, I'm way too ambitious and I have way more things than I ever think I'm going to accomplish. So here's a couple of actionable ways to make this happen. So the first one is to time block every task. That's basically what I just said, where you take everything that's on your to-do list and you give it a time slot on a calendar. The next one is to make sure that important items are scheduled earlier in the day. That is when you are the most cognitively present. Your brain is operating in its fullest first thing in the morning. And if you take those hours and spend them scrolling through social media or replying to emails, that is not the best use of your brain power. Now, I'm not saying that that's 5 a.m. Everybody's first 2 hours of productivity is going to be very different. For a morning person, it might be 4 or 5 in the morning. For somebody else, it might be 10 to noon. But whatever those productive times are for you in the morning, try and schedule things that require more thinking. The next one is don't cancel your goals, just reschedule them. Things are going to happen, life is going to happen, but instead of just saying, well, forget it, I'm not going to do that thing, and maybe it's not even getting rescheduled later that day, maybe it's the next day or even later that weekend. Again, try not to delete goals from your calendar, just move them to a different time. And the last thing is just to treat every appointment that you put on your calendar as an appointment with your doctor. If you had an appointment with your doctor, no matter what time of day, you would go because they're expecting you to be there and their time is valuable. Your time is valuable. If you put on your calendar that you are going to spend an hour in the morning reading a book or listening to a podcast or whatever it is, and then your alarm goes off and you kind of want to hit the snooze button, don't. You set that appointment on your calendar, even though it's just with you, and your time is valuable and you have to commit to it. All right, tip number 4 is to batch your tasks together. And you're probably already doing this on some level. So say you need to go to the grocery store and you have to go to the post office today and you have the whole day off. You're not going to leave the house and go to the grocery store and then come back and then do some things and then leave and go to the post office again. You're going to do both things while you are out of the house. That's essentially what I'm talking about here. Let me give you a couple of other examples of how to batch like tasks together. So the first one, just what we talked about, is batching by location, but think about this more rather than just leaving the house and actually being at that location. If you're meeting a friend for coffee, could you do something else at that coffee shop while you're already there? Could you meet another friend for coffee? Could you work on a project that you've been meaning to work on? The next one is appearance. So if you know you have to look or not look a certain way that day, what else falls into that same appearance bucket? And I've recently been toying with this a little bit by filming before work, which is actually what I'm doing right this second because I'm already dressed and ready to go to work. I did my hair, I did my makeup. Why would I take the time to do that again, either after work and freshen up or on the weekends when I'm already ready to go? And I am a morning person. And so if I can squeeze that in the morning rather than having to get all ready again later in the day or over the weekend, I save myself so much time. The next one is how much prep work does it take to get set up or to clean up? And so a common one for this is cooking. Cooking takes a lot of effort to get going, get all the things out, and then clean it up and put it all away. So how much can you batch cook at the same time? And then the last one is days of the week. Now, I personally can't do this because I have a 9-to-5 job that takes up a lot of my time, but some of the books that I read in preparing for this presentation said that they batch things by days of the week. So for example, Mondays was like email days and it's just correspondence, and Tuesdays were creative days and that was the day they did all their creative stuff, and then Wednesdays was meeting days and that was the only day during the week that they scheduled meetings. Now, this might not be possible for you, but if you do have control over your own schedule, this is just something to consider. Tip number 5 is to stop multitasking. I don't really have any tricks for you here. This is just something that you have to practice and get better at, and it's hard. That's all I've got for you. It is very hard to not want to do 2 things at once. You're like, but I can do it. And sometimes it works if one of the tasks is completely mindless. So if you are walking on the treadmill, you can also listen to a podcast. If you are driving to work, you can also call and catch up with your mom. But the truth is, a lot of tasks aren't mindless, and you cannot do 2 cognitive tasks at the same time. It's not productive. So let's move on to tip number 6, which is going to help with this, and that is eliminating distractions, because that is usually the culprit of our multitasking. Something else takes our attention, and then all of a sudden we're doing 2 things at once. So what are some ways to eliminate distractions? Well, the obvious one is to turn off all the notifications. I'm gonna say it again for the people in the back. Turn off your notifications. There are a couple of people in your life that probably deserve to have their notifications turned on. Every other app, everybody else, They do not deserve it. You get to schedule when you're going to give those people your attention. The next one is combating procrastination, which you can do either through reward and punishment. Depends on the kind of person you are. Some people are really driven by a reward. If I get through this, I get to have this. Some people are punishment people. Some people prefer to be punished, and there's a lot of apps that allow you to do that, where you can say, if I don't do this, I'm going to donate $10 to this charity. So just figure out what kind of person you are and implement that if you are really struggling with procrastination. Along these same lines, get an accountability buddy. And this doesn't necessarily have to be somebody doing the same thing as you. I think one of the big misconceptions is that the accountability buddy has to also be doing the thing. That's not necessarily true. You can have somebody, whether it's somebody that you live with or even just a friend that you text, that can hold you accountable to things that you want to do yourself. This could be making sure you go to the gym. And again, if you could meet somebody at the gym, that would be great. But if not, maybe it is just texting your friend or having your significant other say, hey, are you going to the gym today? And it can be done in a way that is supportive and not judgmental if you don't get it done. Because again, life happens and things change, but there has to be a balance between holding yourself accountable because you said you were going to do it and you can do it. The time is there, and then life happening and things, getting messed up. And during the presentation, I referenced an episode of Friends talking about an accountability partner. It's that episode of Friends where Phoebe and Mike break up, and Phoebe wants to call Mike and she knows that she shouldn't, so she asks Monica to be like her person that tells her she can't call him. And then they're sitting in the coffee shop and Phoebe's like, I think I'm gonna call Mike. And Monica's like, okay. Phoebe goes, no, that was a test. Find an accountability partner that's going to pass that test. And then the last one in eliminating distractions is to clean up your workspace. The less things that you can look at, the less distracted you're going to be. Okay, number 7 is to track your time. If you're really struggling with where all of your hours in the day are going, like you were awake for 18 hours today, where did the time go? Start tracking it. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. I've talked about tracking it on paper and pen, and I've shown that before, and I've posted about it on Instagram if you are interested in the way that I track my time. That might be a little bit overwhelming for you. Maybe an app is better suited instead of paper and pen. And there's 2 apps I'd like to recommend. The first one is if you still want to have control over your categories and your time, and that is called A Tracker. And that app allows you to set your categories and then track your time as you go. And I've had a couple of friends that prefer apps use this app and say that it helped them. The second one is called Life Cycle. That one's going to automatically track things for you. So you put in I think your home address, maybe your work address, and then I think it bases it off the Wi-Fi. It's a little bit creepy, but I think it pings your Wi-Fi and then it figures out where you are. It knew when I was on an airplane one time. But that might be a good starting place just to kind of figure out where you're spending your time. And then the last option is if all of that seems too overwhelming, start tracking individual things that are important to you, to start tracking either positively how much time you're spending on them or negatively how much time you're spending on them. Maybe for you, this is sleep. Maybe you really want to be getting more sleep. So start tracking how much sleep you're getting and try and increase that number. Maybe on the other side, it's how much time you're spending on social media. So maybe you start tallying every 5 minutes that you spend scrolling through Instagram. And then at the end of the day, see how many tallies there are. Again, time tracking doesn't have to be as detailed as the way that I do it. That's just what works for me. But tracking your time can really open your eyes to where your time is going. Okay, number 8 is knowing when it's okay to say stop and to put everything down and to call it a day. And if you did a good job of planning your schedule so that you're not overstuffing your day, this is easier to do. Once you've accomplished all those things, know that it's okay to say stop. Or guess what? Even if you didn't accomplish all those things, but sleep is a priority for you right now and it's 9:30 and it's time to start your nighttime routine, turn it all off. I think the problem with really long to-do lists is at the end of the day, we always have this guilt of not finishing those to-do lists. But the truth is, there are only so many hours in a day and you can only get so much done off of that to-do list, and that's okay. Know when it's time to put it down and walk away. And number 9 is accepting the inevitable imperfections. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to pop up. Things are going to change. Someone's going to cancel. You just have to accept that your schedule is not always going to be perfect, and just think back to that mindset of done is better than perfect. And tip number 10 is don't sacrifice sleep. I feel like I keep using sleep as an example because it's something that I've started prioritizing a little bit more lately. But the truth is, sleep impacts your lifespan. That's all I'm gonna say. There's lots of studies about that. If you wanna go research it, if you wanna Google it, but if you get the right amount of sleep, you are going to live longer. It's as simple as that. So don't sacrifice sleep in the short run to hurt yourself in the long run. I have found that I am way more productive when I get the right amount of sleep. Figure out what that sweet spot is for you in terms of sleep, and everybody is different. I tried to research how many hours of sleep should everybody get, and the average is like 7 to 8, but the truth is every body is different and everybody needs a different amount of sleep to really feel at their peak performance. Now, I know I'm gonna get it, but I have a newborn, so I can't get that much sleep, or I have to get my kids up for school, and I have the luxury of controlling my own sleep schedule because I don't have any other humans that I have to take care of at this moment. But I just want you to think about it if and when you can control your sleep. So when it is 9 o'clock and the kids are in bed and you're like, but I want to spend an hour and a half working on this side project. If you prioritize sleep and go to bed, you are more likely to be productive the next day and can probably find time to work on that side project the next day. So just remember that good time management is not stuffing your day to the brim with all the things in the entire world, all the productivity. You need to give yourself breaks and you need to give yourself rest, and sleep is part of that. Scheduling breaks is part of your day, is part of that. And there's a lot of schools of thought on when you should take breaks and when you should rest, but you should take them and you should rest. A lot of times our body sends us signals to rest and relax, even if it's for 5 minutes, and we override those with caffeine and sugar and more caffeine. So just try to listen to your body, and if your body is saying take a break, whether that's mentally or physically, just try to listen to it. Time management is not one size fits all. It would likely be very difficult for you to take all of these tips and just apply them to your life tomorrow. I want you to take what really resonated with you and what you think you can apply to your day-to-day life and start with just one. Pick one thing that you can do tomorrow that will result in you feeling like you spent your time in the way that was important to you. And let me know in the comments below, what is that one action that you're going to take to start to take control of your time? If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you so much for watching. Happy planning. Also, is that something else takes our distraction and our distraction. It's not grammatically correct. So what are some ways to eliminate it? Excuse me, you're not invited. Go snuggle with Sam. Go that way. She's so ready to jump on my lap.
Hi, kitty.
Oh, it's already purring. I can hear her from here.